Well, hey, welcome to 1128 Community. My name is Mike, and I'm the lead pastor here. You know, our mission as a church is to help people do life different by setting rhythms and values with Jesus at the center. Now, ultimately, we do our best to lead with love, and we want to extend extra grace to all because we could all use a little extra grace sometimes. Now, ultimately, we understand we might not agree on everything, and that's all right. We might not agree on anything even, and that's still all right. This is a safe place to disagree, to have conversations, to explore our faith, and to grow closer to Jesus. Now, I want to tell you, this last week has been a test for me and for Colleen and for our family. You know, it started last Sunday after Mother's Day. It was a great morning. We enjoyed being together with the church family at the community center. And as I was on my way home, I called Colleen and said, hey, what's going on for lunch? Because her mom was in town and her grandma was in town. We were going to celebrate Mother's Day, and they just wanted to have something brought home. And Colleen picked something up, and they were all sitting there waiting for me. But I could tell something was off, something was wrong. She was a little bit like upset. And so I just said, is everything okay? And she was really bothered because JJ had gotten sick and now he was in his bed taking a nap, and it was just not how Mother's Day afternoon was supposed to go. Now, it's not a big deal to have a sick kid. I think we get that pretty often, especially in the sick season, flu season. And so it's not a surprise. But what was maybe a surprise is that after Sunday, he developed a fever. The fever lasted a couple days, and by Tuesday night, the fever was gone, but he was complaining, my legs really hurt. And we said, okay, well, let's get some extra sleep tonight. So we went to bed a little bit early Tuesday. Wednesday morning, Colleen and I were woken up to JJ crawling into our bedroom saying, my legs, they really hurt. They really hurt. And I'll be honest, I was a little bit hard on him. I was like, they don't hurt. Like, get ready for school. Come on, man. Like, pull it together. You can't miss more school. And by the time the bus was supposed to come at 7:30, I could just tell, he's not going to school today. He was kind of hunched over a little bit, kind of dragging his one foot and shuffling, just kind of waddling and complaining, like, my legs really hurt. So I figured, okay, he can stay with me, but he's going to be with me all day. He's coming to the office with me. He's not going to watch his iPad. He's not going to watch TV. He's not going to play games. Like he can read and he can draw and he can do things like that. And so Wednesday, he spent the day with me, and he didn't move a whole lot. When he did move, he looked like the old man needing a walker. And I actually was a little bit worried a couple times that he might tip over. That night, when he went to bed, I was like, all right, man, tomorrow you're getting up, you're getting ready for school, you're getting on the bus, and you're going to have a great day. I said that because I wanted him to know, hey, there's no more excuses. If you're trying to mess with us, stop. You're going to school tomorrow. I also just wanted him to be prepared for working a little bit harder, pushing through the next morning if his legs still hurt. Well, you guessed it. Thursday morning, Colleen and I were in the bedroom, and JJ, he comes crawling in again early, just really crying, really upset, trying to explain that he can't move his legs. They're really hurting. And I said, buddy, why don't you just stand up? And he couldn't even stand up. He couldn't stand up. And I had to carry him and carried him out to the living room, sat him on the couch, and started just kind of feeling around and feeling his legs. And he was really visibly upset and in pain just by me touching his legs. And it was kind of nerve-wracking, kind of terrifying. And so we knew something's going on. We've got to get him to the emergency room. We got to get him checked out. And so took him to the emergency room. And the doctors, they checked him out. They tested all the different kinds of things. And basically what they told us is what we saw on Sunday was a virus in his body, and his body trying to get rid of the virus by getting sick. And then the next couple of days, it tried to fight it off with a fever. But this virus, it must have been severe enough that it actually started to infiltrate his muscles and break down some of his body's proteins. And that was creating a lot of pain for him. So much pain that he couldn't stand up, he couldn't walk, and he had to be carried everywhere. You never expect to be in a situation where you've got to carry your child, or you got to help him use the restroom. It was terrifying. It was definitely a scary moment, a moment that created a lot of anxiety and fear, I'm sure, and Colleen definitely did in me. And the doctors, they didn't seem as concerned as I would have hoped they would be. They're like, oh yeah, we'll give him an IV, get him some fluids, and he should be walking again, Saturday or Sunday. He might not walk though Thursday, Friday, and part of Saturday. What? What? I'm left asking, is this the start of a really bad story? A story that I don't want to be a part of. I started asking the question, Jesus, would you protect my son? Jesus, would you heal him? Jesus, would you allow him to walk again? Not because I can't carry him or can't take care of him, but I want him to really experience a full life. And it left me asking this question. Is Jesus enough? Is Jesus enough? Like I trust Jesus for the forgiveness of my sins. I believe that Jesus saves me and has the ability to save you as well. But when it comes to healing my son, is Jesus enough? I sure hope so, because these doctors, it felt like they didn't have the answer other than, we'll just wait it out. We'll wait it out. And you know what? The doctors were right. Looking back on it now, he started walking Friday afternoon and he was almost 100% normal. They were right. But in that moment, I was stuck asking, is Jesus enough? Is Jesus enough? And I'm sure over the last couple years, maybe you've asked that question as well. With the surprise of COVID, with the shortage on various things at the grocery store, the paper towels, the toilet paper, now it's baby formula. Maybe the increase in rent has you asking, is Jesus enough? The price at the pump, is Jesus enough? I think we all ask these questions, whether we intend to really seek the answer or not, but we all ask, is Jesus enough? Can Jesus protect me? Can Jesus protect my family? Can Jesus provide for us? Is Jesus enough? Today, I want you to know that Jesus is enough. It might be hard to believe. We might not even have proof at times that says Jesus is enough. But trust me, Jesus is enough. Jesus is enough for you and for me, for your family, for your kids, for all of us. Jesus is enough. And it's our job. It's our job as people that that believe Jesus is enough to plan ahead, to prepare, to count on Jesus being enough so that we can live generously with that. You see, when we plan ahead, we are free to live generously. When our plans believe that Jesus is enough and Jesus will provide, we can step into the blessing that is generosity. Now, here's the interesting thing. In Leviticus, we read these couple verses about generosity, and it's this weird passage in the middle of a book that's really boring. God is giving orders and rules and laws to Moses and the Israelites and telling them how to live. And you might be wondering, or maybe you've thought in the past, like, how does this relate to me? Leviticus is all these Old Testament rules and Old Testament things that they needed to do in order to experience all that Jesus had to offer. But how does it apply to me? How does it apply to me in my story today? Well, let me tell you. In chapter 19 of Leviticus, verses 9 through 13, we read, "When you harvest your land, don't harvest right up to the edges of your field, or gather the gleanings from the harvest. Don't strip your vineyard bare or go back and pick up the fallen grapes. Leave them for the poor and the foreigner, because I am God, your God. Don't steal, don't lie, don't deceive anyone. Don't swear falsely using my name, violating the name of your God, because I am God. Don't exploit your friend or rob him. And finally, don't hold back the wages of a hired hand overnight." Again, let's ask the question, is Jesus enough? Right? If I'm the landowner and I have a field filled with crops ready to be harvested, it feels like I have enough. But what God's saying here is, don't harvest all of them. Don't harvest all of them. And I'm sure the temptation is to say, okay, but is that going to be enough? Well, what about the hired worker? They're working hard in the field for the owner. They're harvesting the crops for the owner. And I'm sure they're wondering, am I going to make enough to provide for my family, for my loved ones, the people I care about? Am I making enough? But again, we read here, God saying to the landowner, don't hold it back. Take care of the people that you've hired. And for the people that are hired, they know, I'm going to have enough. And the most interesting is the people that are poor, the foreigners, those traveling the road next to the field. Maybe they're wondering constantly, do I have enough? What is enough? Do I have anything? But God says here, don't harvest right up to the edges. Don't harvest to the edges so that the poor and the foreigner can take from those edges and have enough. You know, when we trust God, we have enough. When we trust God, we have enough. And so it's in our trust of God that we can plan ahead. And when we plan ahead, we can live generously. We're free to live generously. I was talking to my friend Melissa Hoffmeister the other day, and you can hear more of that conversation by checking out our Deep Dive podcast, talking about money. And what Melissa said is that most people, they're living paycheck to paycheck. Most people live paycheck to paycheck. And I said, well, okay, you're a financial advisor. When somebody comes in and says like, hey, I want to have a better financial situation, and you find out that they're living paycheck to paycheck, what's something that you help them with? What do you start off with? And she said, ultimately, it's kind of getting down to planning ahead, creating a budget, starting to live within your means. And I was a little bit surprised by that, but she said, most people don't budget. Most people, they check their bank app, they look at it and they see how much they got in the account, and then they live off of that. They live off of that, thinking this is how much I have to operate from. And ultimately, a lot of times that just leads to stress, anxiety. It creates this burden of, do I have enough? Because we tend to overspend and not have it all in our heads to say like, oh, I don't actually have money for this or for that, or I have a bill coming due and so I shouldn't be doing this. And ultimately it robs us of our joy and it erases our ability to live generously when we don't plan ahead. And when we don't plan ahead, it might be that we're not trusting that Jesus is enough. It might be that we're trying to take care of it on our own. I think, though, there's something to be learned here. There's something that we can see in this passage in Leviticus, that God says, I see the landowner, I see the hired worker, and I see the person that's poor and wandering. And I take care of each and every one of them. They have exactly what they need. They have exactly what they need. And the lesson for each of them is do not steal, do not lie, and do not deceive one another. Ultimately, it's live with integrity. Live within your means. Living within your means probably starts with making a budget. Probably starts with planning ahead. You know, when we plan ahead, the surprises of COVID, the surprises of medical situations, those surprise car repairs, it's not that they're not a surprise anymore. It's that we feel confident, like God's got this. God's prepared me. God's given me enough to handle this situation, and it's not going to cause me to go into a financial ruin. You know, several years ago, Colleen and I were living in an apartment in California. We were just married. We got an apartment that was like the cheapest one because it was ultimately all that we could afford at the time. And I'll never forget, there was one night, middle of the night, we woke up to glass shattering, yelling. It sounded like just an intense fight. And as that's all happening, we then hear footsteps running through the complex. And then a couple minutes later, we see the lights flashing and some squad cars show up. It was another night of just like, what the heck is going on? But it was kind of the final straw, right? Because over the couple months we lived there, our car was broken into a few times. Our radio was stolen several times out of the car. We replaced it. Like, it was a situation. And this was the final straw for us. We didn't feel safe there. And while it was all that we could afford, we knew that something had to change because we didn't feel safe. And so we ended up moving. We broke our rental agreement and we moved to a new location that cost a bit more. But it's what we had to do. And ultimately, at that point in time, we weren't planning ahead. We weren't budgeting. We weren't even living. What we were doing was surviving. And that survival, it felt good. It felt okay for a season. But ultimately, it led to this place of not having money in the bank account, having debt on our credit cards, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like we each had to work 2 or 3 jobs, and just feeling like, man, like, there's got to be something more. And then we thought, okay, if we get out of California, if we move back home, to the Illinois area, the cost of living is cheaper. Like things will change, right? It was the same old. We were stuck in that cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, just barely able to pay off the bills, not paying down our debt. And I'll never forget one of my friends named Joe. Him and his wife, they started using a budgeting app. It was called You Need a Budget. And he's like, hey, this is life-changing. You should check it out. So we signed up for You Need a Budget. And really quickly, we saw where all our money was going. We were able to see where we could save money. We could see what debts we should pay off first. And over the course of several years, with the help of an app, we were able to plan ahead, escape debt, and start really living. No longer were we trying to survive, but we were free to live. We were free to do life different. And all the while, God kept providing. God took care of us in every situation, in every circumstance. We always had enough. Maybe you can relate. Maybe there's things beyond your control. Maybe there's things that you can control. Maybe it's poor decisions. Maybe it's just surprises out of nowhere. But maybe today you feel stuck in the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. You're just trying to survive. You don't feel like you're alive. And to plan ahead feels scary to you. There are times in your life right now where you want to be generous, but you simply can't be. Because you have to choose between being generous and feeling guilty that you're using your last dollars rather than paying something down. I get it. I've been there. But I want to tell you, God provides. Jesus is enough. If Jesus has the ability to save you from sin, to restore relationship with the Father, He has the ability to provide in your financial mess today. But it starts with planning ahead. You see, when you plan ahead, you become free to live generously. And living generously, that's how we do life different. No longer are we tied down, struggling to get by. No longer do we feel that burden or that stress of wondering, like, do I have enough? Am I going to make it? When we plan ahead and we're free to live generously, we experience the blessing of sharing what God has given us with others. And that's what the world needs more of. The world needs more generous people. The world needs people that take care of each other, that share what they have, that say, oh man, you've got something going on in your life right now. Like, I want to buy you a meal. I want to send you a gift. I want to take you out for a night on the town just so you can have a moment to rest and escape your anxiety, your situation, that problem. The world needs more generosity. The world needs more Christians to reflect the generosity of Jesus. Now, this isn't a message about making a gift to the church. No, this is a message about doing life different and stepping into the freedom of living generously. Making a real difference in the world around you because you've planned ahead and you've decided, I want to be generous. That's what God wants for you. That's what I want for you. Now this week, it's going to feel like more of the same old, same old. You might feel stuck in that rut. You might feel like, man, I've got a lot of bills to pay, or I'm just barely scraping by, or there might be a surprise this week. I don't know. But I want to encourage you to take a step, to choose to do something uncomfortable, Set aside $5. Set aside $10 if you can, and plan ahead. Say, I'm going to use this money to be generous. I'm going to use this money to care for somebody. I'm going to use this money to give it away to a person that needs a meal. Or I'm going to use this money to bless a friend. I'm going to send a gift to somebody without them knowing it's from me. I promise you that when you plan ahead, you're going to be free to live generously. And when you live generously, you're going to experience real joy in your life. You're going to be eased of the burdens and the stress and the anxiety for even just a moment, because you get to experience what it means to be like Jesus. That's my encouragement to you this week, to take care of somebody, to plan ahead, and to prepare to live generously. If you do that, you're going to be on your way to taking that first step of doing life different. Let me pray for you. God, thank you for taking care of us. Thank you for taking care of us, whether we're the landowner, the hired worker, or the person just kind of wandering and poor on the road. Thank you for giving us enough, providing for us in ways that we maybe don't recognize. God, would you help us this week to plan ahead, to trust in your provision, and to trust that to plan ahead will allow us to live generously and to be the blessing that you're asking us to be. God, we pray this in your name. Amen.